You've tuned into the Bellingham podcast for the week of Father's Day, June 20th, 2021. This is episode 193. From that BEERUN city by the Salish Sea, I am AJ Barce.
Wow, that is a obscure blast from the past. Straight out of 92.26, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, I was not prepared for AJ's intro as where I'm jumping over my words here. We're going to continue the mini-series that we've been undertaking now that post-COVID life is starting to not rear, but more like take forefront with all of our lives, and we're getting out and about. We talked about getting a bite to eat, of which I've already had some, so I'm kind of full. But I'm feeling kind of thirsty. Why don't we talk about places to get a drink next? This is the Bellingham Podcast. The longest intro I've had.
I was going to say it's a long intro. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing just fine. Happy Father's Day, AJ, and to AJ's kiddo. That was the sound of aluminum-lined drinking bottles clinking. Yes, congratulations on another Father's Day.
As to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. To all the fathers out there, have a nice day. I hope you're able to get some love from the family. And anyway, let's. We are going to talk about places to go get a drink, but we have breaking news, sports fans. This just in, or at least this just up, as of last weekend. My man AJ is one of the few people in this world, and I say that with all seriousness, one of the few people in this world who has climbed a mountain.
A volcano.
A volcano, if you will. No, his name's not Joe. His name's AJ. AJ, tell us about the recent achievement you had, because you describe it much better than me.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, happy Father's Day to my pops, if he's listening, because he always is.
Happy Father's Day, AJ's dad.
And second, so this was in the books for a while, and we alluded to it. A buddy of mine and I were thinking about putting together a trek of sorts to Mount St. Helens, which is one of the southernmost, if not the southernmost, mountain here in Washington State. It's world-renowned name from when it kind of blew its top back in the 80s.
1980, yes.
Yes, and I believe it's the most destructive volcanic activity in the United States. There's a lot of...
Sure, because we said it so.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes around it. But anyway, ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to kind of... I've been to it before, but I've always wanted to get up to it. Even before it blew its top, it was a 9,000-foot peak. Now it sits at around 8,300-ish.
It got a crew cut.
Yeah, I got a crew cut, but it's still a steep grade. You gain about 6,000 feet of elevation, and going at about this time in spring, you get an opportunity to do a little bit of mixed climbing where you don't have to. It's technically considered non-technical. You don't have to have a harness or rope, but you do have ice axe, trekking poles. You're loaded for bear to go up. But what's nice is there's still snow.
When you get up that high, you're going to have some of the white stuff.
Oh, man, I was in whiteout conditions for a good half of the trek. But what's cool is that there's this notion called glissading, which is basically where you park your rear on ice and snow and then...
Your rumpus, right?
My rumpus. Thank you for calling that back out.
Uh-huh.
And you control slide down. And you use your ice axe as a rudder and as an anchor. And that's how you're able to cut your time. Like, my ascent was over 8 hours. My descent was like 3. Because
down a mountain.
Oh man, it was a blast, especially because you're so knackered. You're so exhausted. And I was fighting wind, freezing temperatures, sleet, snow. And it was worth it. Like, I got to the top and got none of the view. It was completely white out.
No Instagram moment?
No. There was one that I took because I got up there. But like, for me, it was well worth it. Like, yeah. Obviously I went up there for the view, but again, it's not about I hate to use the token, like, it's not about the destination but the journey. It's more about the climb. I needed to get out and away, and I did it solo. My climbing partner had to bow out at the very last minute, had a family emergency, and so I was on my own on a mountain. It was great.
Yeah. All right, well, congratulations. Wow. Here's to you, Daddy-O, and what a great achievement. But we had to celebrate that on the show, because not a lot of climbers, go up a friggin' volcano. So you have my respect, my props, and my happiness because you were able to come down the mountain and stuff like that, and you weren't some kind of popsicle still up there.
No, I definitely believe in the quote from Ed Viger's world-renowned mountaineering. Summiting is optional. Getting back down is mandatory.
There you go. I like it.
But to celebrate, one might go and get a drink, Chris.
That's right. So in this little mini-series, we've got Welcome Back to Bellingham. We're getting out and about. We're doing life in Bellingham. And for those of you, this is who may be new to the show or just checking things out. This is the scenario that we've been posing for our themed episodes. You're in town, Bellingham, on business, attending a conference somewhere, or are visiting family and friends. You've heard lots of good things about the city by the Salish Sea, and you're thirsty. Now what? And so, as we've talked about before, there's a whole lot of famous, well-known, popular drinking establishments. And before we get started, on this show, since we got started about 5 years ago, 5.25 years.
Over 5 years ago.
Over 5 years ago, yes. We may talk about places that serve alcohol, but make no mistake, AJ and I firmly are holding our heroes among us that are going through recovery for various addiction in high regard. And while we are talking about places where you can get a drink, we are definitely keeping many people in mind, and we have other liquid refreshment beverage alternatives. That's right, for all to choose from, including those under 21, according to Washington state law. That being said, we have some famous locations that we just want to cover briefly. Boundary Bay Brewery and Bistro down there on Railroad Street.
Save the ales.
Save the ales. You see on way too many hooded sweatshirts around here in Bellingham. Kulshan Brewing Company, Aslan Brewing Company, and the latest one that took over a warehouse and completely took over a residential.
With a huge beer garden sign and stuff. Yeah, twin sisters.
So those are the kind of the four horsemen of the beer apocalypse in a lot of cases. But we want to talk good. We want to talk about other places in mind where you want to get a drink that you may not be aware of. And so we're going to do the whole TikTok thing. Going first, AJ, you start this one off. Where would you go get a beer?
So I'm not one to imbibe much. To be full disclosures on the show, I'm not much of a drinker. I never really have been.
Yeah, I'm an eighth of a ton, and I'm a lightweight. Really, I'm a cheap date according to my beautiful wife.
But there is a small little place, little hole in a basement. I'm not even gonna say hole in a wall, down in Fairhaven off of 10th Street. Called Archer's Ale House. Really cool vibe. There's a lot of history down there, largely because the bar the physical bar, the wood thing goes across. If I recall, I talked to the owner once long ago, and that bar actually was an old bar out of Chicago. It was being decommissioned and stuff, and he actually had it shipped to Fairhaven. It was so big, they had to carve out part of Archer's Ale House, and that's why it's weird and extended out a little bit down below to get it to fit. But it's that kind of quirky history and stuff, and they're also they're much of a different. They're more like a pub. If you've ever been to Europe, especially over in England, Archer's is very much in that more public house pub stuff. Good pub fare, pub trivia, and they also have a lot of imported stuff. So if you're into Belgian ales, Trappist ales, and stuff, you can kind of get a little bit. Quote unquote cultured in different beers around the world. And that's kind of what's interesting about them.
The fun thing that I like about Archer's Ale House, and this recalls back to my days of the 80s, and I know you can't identify youngin because you are a decade past me, but the iconic TV episode Cheers always had people walking down below street level into the bar. This is very similar in Archer's Ale House. You won't see it above ground, so to speak. It is a below ground kind of place. Talk for me. I'm going to hit a fairly new establishment around. This is just off North I-5, Ohio Street, Iowa Street, that whole, I think it's exit 253 on the I-5 punch card. There's a place called Stemma Brewing Company, and you might notice that the mascot or the logo for Stemma is this cute little kitten.
I love that cute kitten.
Exactly. And so for your discerning whetted appetite for stuff, they have all kinds. They have beer and cider available, and it's just a really nice establishment. They do have outdoor seating, thank goodness.
Oh, good.
Well, it's just a beautiful area.
Fun fact, never been.
Exactly. And I've been there a couple times. It's a great establishment, and they actually have some pretty tasty drinks that they have in-house. Watching them create the cans or the can the beverages is a pretty cool process to observe.
That's rad.
So check out Stemma. Oh, by the way, we've got for all of these locations, instead of like street addresses where you have to do work on your phone, if you're listening to us on a mobile device, we got a link in the show notes. And for the love of my favorite manager of pro wrestling, Jim Cornette,
drink.
That's right, and literally in this case,
yeah. Best episode for that.
Yeah, we choose Google Maps just because it's easy. But if you want to talk to us later about how we feel about Google, buckle up.
Yeah.
That being said, let's talk about...
Be that as it may.
Of course. Let's talk about another form, and this would be cider.
So I'm going to bow out of this one because I only know of the one place here in town. I don't do a lot of cider. So, okay. Chris, I'm going to go tick to your talk.
There you go. So my relationship with beer has been kind of strained as of late. I'm kind of on the outs.
Is that your Facebook beer book message?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Your relationship is complicated.
I've got bitter beer social media face. I have a budding romance with cider for some reason. It's just a little light and refreshing, and it doesn't really weigh me down. Not that this is an advertisement for such, but I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Always drink responsibly.
There is a great always. Don't be a dork.
Public service announcement from the Bellingham podcast.
As in everything, don't be a dork. There's a place in town across the way from the Whatcom Dispute Resolution Center, a fine nonprofit establishment, the old Whatcom Museum over there on Prospect Street. For the Bellingham residents who are forced to have to deal with the post office and the lines that exude from the Prospect Street post office, you can at least have a consolatory drink at the Bellingham Cider Company. Fine establishment for restaurant food as well. A great environment.
Yeah. The family friendly.
Family friendly, most definitely. So I'm a fan of Bellingham Cider Company, but I also want to make a special shout out. And this one's for all the musicians out there. There is an area in Bellingham where you can order cider. I looked on the website. I was hoping there'd be a local establishment. There was in the past, but COVID happened and stuff occurs. But Herb's Cider is a place around where you can locate ciders to drink from. Elizabeth Station may have some. They are like the mecca of, oh my gosh, there's so many selections. I have decision fatigue.
Sure.
Drinks, but Herb's Cider is owned by Tim Alexander, and for those of you who may not know a whole lot about Tim Herb Alexander was a drummer for Primus.
Yes.
This fabulous band in the 90s, and of course Les Claypool as a bassist,
yep.
One of my influences just from his unbelievable otherworldliness. But Tim, drummer for Primus, started his own cider company.
That's
so
right.
We got a local Top Gun around here. Anyway, let's talk about some of the hard stuff. Let's talk about some cocktails. AJ, go for it.
So cocktails, I only really have one place that comes to mind, and it's because let me paint you all a picture, okay? So imagine if you're going to celebrate, like maybe you've summited a mountain or whatever, and you want a little bit something more subdued because this is the city of subdued excitement, and you want a little bit of that, again, more European flair. But instead of going British like I did with Archers, we're going to go French. And there's a place in, what's that plaza?
Sycamore Square.
Is it Sycamore Square?
I believe so, yeah.
So anyway, there's a building there. All of Fairhaven is old brick buildings and such, and it's our historical art district. And in said building, if you go up a couple of flight of stairs, you'll see a rustic-looking sign called Le Chat Noir,
yep.
which is the Black Cat.
And all those famous paintings that you
yes.
see, yep, that'd be the one.
And it's when you go in, the wallpaper is like very French, old school 1930s French, Metropolis-esque Art Deco with great good food, a fully stocked bar. And what's nice is that back in my younger days, when I knew nothing about cocktails, there was and I imagine she doesn't work there anymore, but there was a nice young lady there that I literally was like, look, I don't like things that are sweet, and I don't like things that are bitter. Can you make me something that isn't either one? And that was my foray into this whole notion of a cocktail, because in my book, I'd always see, my then girlfriend, now wife, always having a pink drink that was very sweet. And then I would see the old, I hate to say this, but the old man's drinks.
Yep.
And they were very heavy on the bitters or heavy on the booze. And it just didn't vibe for me. And she came, I don't even remember what it was, Chris, to be honest. But I remember she brought it out and it worked for me, So anyway, I like Le Chat Noir. Just the vibe is cool. It can be pretty hop. Well, pre-COVID, it could be pretty hoppin' depending on what time of the week it is.
Yeah.
But it's always just a place where you can dip in. You can sit back and look outside the windows and drink your cocktail.
It is a pretty cool view outside of the windows if you are lucky enough to get a window seat. But what I've heard sometimes in Le Chat Noir, they may have 102.3 FM KMRE playing on the sound system in that establishment.
Or they might be streaming us worldwide on the kmre.org, even in France.
Through computer speakers. So for my place where I wanted to get a cocktail, there's a number of places around. I got one in the secret weapon file later on. But when you go on State Street is kind of the place in Bellingham where if you want to go out and park and do a little bit of a crawl in some aspects.
Let's get this out of the way, Chris. State Street is pretty much the hub of all things downtown.
Yeah,
that's where all the youths are.
Yeah,
if that is your scene, that's where you'll be.
I would say Railroad is the heart of downtown Bellingham,
sure.
But State Street is one block away, so you're in the right vicinity. There's a Rock and Rye. I'm gonna articulate this because I'm not hammered. Rock and Rye Oyster House on State Street that they have. So if you are a fan of oysters or seafood, or you've always seen them and want to try it out, they have great selection, great quality. You can also get a drink there. I like their environment. It's pretty cool. It's something that I think that if you are new to town and you want to kind of get a feel for the Bellingham scene, that would be a great place to go as well.
Totally.
Let's move on to another type of fermented drink. Let's talk about kombucha. And quite frankly, I'm tagging out of this one because quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I can't stand kombucha. So AJ, you're up, pal.
This is why I am I am your tick and you're my talk. I don't do cider, but I do bucha. Look, I like kombucha. Okay, it is a fermented. Most of the time, the alcohol is taken out. Drink, if you don't know what it is, basically, if you like bubble seltzer water but in a tea form, that's what really kombucha is. The palate, though, every kombucha is a little bit different. Sometimes they can be a little bit vinegary. Sometimes they can be super sweet or dry. And they really are their own type of thing. So that is I am trying to de-hippie this notion of kombucha. It's not like you're going to a shop where it's like, sup, Chris, like, this is my kombucha baby, man. Like, it's not that. Like, kombucha is very much not that in this town.
I'm not going to throw something under the bus because at the Bellingham podcast, we like to keep things optimistic and positive and lighthearted. But yes, please continue on kombucha.
I just want to, you and I talked off mic. So so there is our central kombucha hub here in Bellingham. It's called Kombucha Town. They're down in the basement, but
the Herald building.
The Herald building, but I won't call it the basement. The outside west side of the building.
Right near State Street.
Right near State Street. What's great about them is pretty much anybody that I introduce kombucha to, like, there's something there that is for everybody. They have a blood orange that's
except me.
Except you. There's a blood orange one that if you like, the blood orange Pelo Sangrina, which
it's limonada for me, man. I'm not down with blood orange. I'm
fine,
being grumpy.
fine.
Just keep talking about
get
it.
Positive,
Kombucha Town's great.
Positive.
Just talk about kombucha.
It's healthier.
Leave me out of it.
It's healthier.
I don't care.
Anyway, so it's full of probiotic, Chris. All the probiotics.
I'll have some yogurt, sucker. Keep going. Anyway, you're not selling me on this. Come on.
I tried, folks. I tried. So anyway, Kombucha Town, no, but honestly, like, if you're interested in kombucha and you want something that is similar to like that of Pellegrinos, whether it's limonada, blood orange and stuff, it is very much more of that kin of a drink, but it is not carbonated. It's brewed. The other one that I want to throw out is...
Yes, not literally like I would, but figuratively. Go ahead.
Stay positive, Chris.
Yeah,
I'm
trying to.
I mentioned this on the show. I've only been able to find them at the Bellingham Farmers Market, and it's called Leif's, Leif's tea.
Like Leif Erikson?
Leif. They have this tea called a Jun, Jun, and it's a bubbly probiotic tea. They don't call it a kombucha, and it's made from green tea, herbs, and raw honey. And I mentioned it several episodes back, but that's another thing that I would throw out. And like I said, I can't find a place where it's at other than I found them at the farmers market. And according to their Instagram, that's where they are still at. So that's, if you're in the kombucha clique, those are the two that in this town I would point you towards.
Awesome. Let's move on, shall we, please?
Yep. Okay. Wow, Chris. So let's get to something that you and I are very amenable towards, and that is a coffee.
Yes. So, and there's a coffee shop on every street corner in Bellingham. Tick on this one. This is one we've mentioned. This establishment has been mentioned many times. in previous episodes of the Bellingham podcast. It's on Railroad Street. It's near Casa de Pasa. It is open in the morning. It is, I don't know about evening time and stuff like that, but here's the thing. Cafe Adagio on the corner of Railroad and I forget what, just go on Railroad by the WTA bus zone, you'll find it. It's an incredible establishment. The chairs, the tables are nice. The proprietor of the establishment takes great pride in the skill of creating a cuppa Java that looks pretty. The leaf drawings and things like that, it's awesome. And then hand delivers it to you in some cases, not always. They may bark out your order. But what I like about this place, and sing along if you know the words, kids, how many times you go into an establishment and there's a techno oonce soundtrack or some kind of music that's played way too bloody loud to have a conversation, kind of like what we're doing here in AJ's backyard. You can't hear yourself with the volume of music or the type of music. And I'm talking at some other national chain coffee establishments around for their choice of music. No, I don't want to hear Kesha and I don't want to hear Cardi B despite what the staff wants to play. Cafe Adagio, ladies and gentlemen, plays really cool classical and jazz music. If you go on YouTube and you type in coffee shop mix, you're going to get an establishment that looks like Cafe Adagio. The music is going to sound like Cafe Adagio. They've got that lightning in a bottle for that experience. Have I talked long enough about it? Go get a cup of coffee, support that local business.
It's Bellingham Central Perk if you're a Friends fan.
I could totally roll with that. I am a Friends fan. By the way, did you catch the reunion?
I haven't yet.
It's a man, I don't want to throw stuff under the bus. It was a really feel-good type of affair. And when you're thinking of feel-good, James Corden is totally a feel-good kind of host. And he did so much, yay, as they were doing interviews and look-backs and things like that. Anyway, we got way in the weeds on that one. AJ, we're talking about coffee, actually. Talk it.
Okay, so for me, Camber.
Yes.
I don't know how to really describe Camber other than it is... I hate to use the word minimal, but hang on there.
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest minimalist, where it is that, I don't want to call it sterilized, but it's sparse but organic because there's a lot of wood. Deliberate, a lot of wood tones, a lot of natural tones, but also that clean, stark black and white that you see a lot of Instagram coffee photos from. But the thing I like about Camber is their beans that they use. Like I was lucky enough to get a gift card for my birthday, and I ordered some of their blends of beans that they do, and whatever mojo they do with their roasting is phenomenal. I still say that generally speaking, Tony's Coffee is probably one of the best roasters in town, but Camber's right up there as a more smaller key player.
I believe it's, we do have a directions for you for your mobile device in your Maps app, but it's on the corner of Hawley and I'm going to say Bay Street.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And what you can do if you are exploring this town, by the way, Bay Street and Hawley is right in the thick of everything that would be downtown nightlife in Bellingham. Get yourself in the morning, let's just say a Saturday morning, go get a cup of coffee from Camber to go. And then you can walk to the granary.
Yeah.
You're blocks away from that. You're blocks away from downtown and all of the curious shops that occur. It's a great way to peruse downtown with something to warm your hand. And it got a great establishment, and it's a place to spend an hour.
Because the vibe that's there, like big windows, there's in this town, there's also Woods Coffee, which is the big coffee roaster, big coffee house here. If they're pop, I call Camber like alternative. Like they're the same vibe, but they do it smaller and a little bit louder.
I'll see your alternative, and I'll raise you a down tempo in our next category for tea.
Oh, yes.
Not Mr. Tea Foo, the actual loose leaf and other things that you would be doing. I would call Makeworth Market, I believe also on State Street on the corner there, down tempo. Here is another predominantly sparse aesthetic type locale, 2 stories or 2 levels of being able to park your rumpus. Great location, love the venue, very cool selections of both teas and coffees available, not just to drink but also to buy. That's kind of cool. They've got some chai, honey chai, and some other ones. I mean, they've got some variety going on there. Makeworth Market is where it's at, and I think when Bellingham finally defrosts and gets out and about, you're gonna have a tough time finding a place to sit. So be strategic.
The look and vibe of that place is literally if Apple Store had a cafe. Like that's
a great way to put it.
That's how I would really frame them.
Except Apple plays that weird, happy music that whatever, and I'm just picturing Makeworth with down tempo, chill hop music.
Yeah, no, it is very much a chill hop.
All right, talk to it.
So for me, I was going to point out we had a tea house over in Fairhaven, but unfortunately, right before the pandemic, they shuttered. Yeah. So Abbey Garden is no longer. So for me, for tea, I still have to say, like Wonderland Teas, which I know is not a place to go and imbibe a tea, but if you're a person, and for instance, let's say you're an international gent from the UK and you come into our fair town and you're like, you need a good cup of tea, okay?
It's around tea time.
And everything that you see at the local store in bags is absolute garbage. And so you want to have some loose leaf tea. Okay?
It may not be up to caliber that we would want to have for a discerning palate.
Hey, I've had tea in London. Let me tell you, there's some good tea over there. So if you want to have a wide variety of teas, Wonderland Teas is the place to go. You can buy your loose leaf there and all your accoutrement to steep it and brew it. The proprietor of that place is a wonderful, wonderful woman. And even if you don't know what your palate is to tea, like my wife was, you can just explain kind of what you are looking for, and she can either point you to a tea or blend something for you. So that's the reason why I like them.
All right, so we've covered the whole spectrum in a lot of cases of places to go to get a drink of some sorts. There's an underlying theme with a whole lot of drinking and eating establishments, which is usually music played at volumes you cannot have a conversation. I want to go to a quiet place. And no, I'm not talking about the recent movie that came out. I want a good experience for a quiet place because I'm an introvert. I like hearing only the voices in my head and no one else. So where I go when I need to go have somewhere quiet is at the Bellwether downtown. We talked about getting outside and a place to go. It's my happy place. But inside the Bellwether Hotel, there's a Harborside Bistro. And yes, they have wonderful food and it's a wonderful environment. It's kind of an experience type restaurant, but you can also get a fine cocktail or a pint, if you will. I recommend that because in the summertime, they may, and we don't know how the summer's going to be for live music or outdoor gatherings, wash, rinse, repeat for everything around here, but they've had some evening live music out on the patio of this Harborside Bistro. I really dig the vibe. It's really cool. And oh, by the way, you are witness to so many boats in the Bellingham Bay.
My son loves that place.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So check that one out. Talk for you.
So for me, much like you just said, and I'm not going to play the introvert card because once we get out of the pandemic, I'm going to be a little bit more extroverted because I'm going to want to reconnect with people. And so much like what Chris just said, I echo. I want to go to a place that's a little bit more subdued, a little bit more down-tempo so I can talk to people face to face, not have to yell like some venues in this town.
So yeah.
So Baby Greens actually is a garden shop, plant shop, but they have a coffee shop inside of it. It's small, it's very intimate, as in like close quarters, but the reason why it doesn't get much more quieter than that, because like you're surrounded by plants, you'll have the of the machine for the handful of people that are going to come in and get a coffee. But if you're visiting somebody or somebody's in town and you want to catch up after the pandemic, that's probably where I'm going to go.
But they have some pretty choice plants. I mean, they're rather curated with a unique perspective on a lot of plants. So that's cool. It's one thing to kind of get out and about and relate with someone, but you kind of want to be out and about. Cut loose. You guys sing along if you know the words. You put deodorant on. You put your best collared shirt on. You
keep that collar down.
That's right. And don't pop that collar yet. You want to be able to go where everybody is around, I guess.
Yeah.
And a good place that to enjoy the scene, if you will.
As reported by two introverts.
who are dads and who really don't go out and party on Friday night because we know what we're talking about. Anyway.
This is our best attempt, folks.
On Northwest Avenue, as you're driving, depending on if you're driving away from the interstate, you're getting into a residential zone, or you're driving to the interstate coming from downtown, you're going to encounter a goods market, which is a produce joint. But something happened. A funny thing happened as they were selling some produce. They started selling beer. And anytime that happens in Bellingham, that's kind of like you pulled a slot machine and jackpot.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
So Goods Local Brews is a brew place that has outdoor seating even in the dead of winter.
Yeah, they do.
My wife and I were nearby and observed on a number of occasions a lot of cold people hovering over their
cold pints.
That's right. Goods Local Brews is a great outdoor place, especially as I'm getting a sunburn from being in this beautiful sunny weather. Go check it out, AJ.
So for me, what's called the Schweinhaus.
Schweinhaus
Biergarten. You know, it's kind of mini Leavenworth, if I could throw that out for Washingtonians.
It's worthy of Leavenworth.
It is. It's a mini Leavenworth beer garden, covered area. You know, most university students will pop in there. You know, at the start of the night or at the end of the night. It's pretty hopping, but the food. It's good.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good.
They know what they're talking about.
Yep.
So as we are getting close to wrapping up, we usually in this mini-series talk about a secret weapon. You know, we can talk wonderfully about a number of areas, but there's the personal touch.
Yeah.
AJ, what's your secret weapon for liquid refreshment?
My secret weapon is a coffee house that is over by the Whatcom County Museum. That's the big red building that defines everything of Bellingham.
A lot of frosted glass in it, too.
So there's a place called Cafe Velo. And it's owned and ran by a wonderful woman who also has a thing for bicycles, because it's a bicycle repair place and coffee shop, outdoor seating. It is my go-to place whenever I have to meet up with somebody during the pandemic, because they have lovely outdoor seating. It was my one place. You know, you can go in for those that are allergy conscious or vegan or et al. They make probably one of the best, if not the best, oat milk lattes in town.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And it's the best $5 I can spend on a cup of coffee is there at Cafe Velo.
Well, that's AJ Barce's recommendation for the secret weapon. Mine, for example, when I need a drink, my wife and I have discovered a wonderful place in Barclay Village. You might, on some weeknight, depending on how it be, see a very tall, menacing-looking individual sitting next to...
Don't tell you that about your wife.
No, that I'm talking about me. I would be sitting across the table from an absolutely stunningly beautiful, statuesque, oh my gosh, she's hot woman having a drink. There's a place called the Blue Abode in Barclay Village. You got the owner of the joint, who is a fabulous person. Kurt, you're the goods. He wants to get to know your name. He's very hospitable, doting on the customers. There's only a few tables there. So you got to be, and they do have some outdoor tables, of course, but they do have some very unique ciders available. And they also have a drink of the night, like the cocktail special and things like that. And it's a little bit of a compressed area. It's not a hole in the wall. No. But it's a rather intimate establishment. And you might see my beautiful wife and me, in case you want to tell me how awesome the Bellingham podcast is, you can see us there at the Blue Abode in Barclay Village. But what you are not allowed to do is to hand me a fork while I'm having my drink with my wife. And speaking of which, I think we should stick a fork in the show.
Wow, that was a hard fork yet again. And that wraps up this 193rd edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us, drinking with us, wherever you like to get your podcast. Remember, if you are in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
They are streaming worldwide all over the darn internet at kmre.org, and we blew that outro. Anyway, they're on kmre.org. Take it.
And on that note, pour me another one. I'm AJ Barce.
And I'm really watching too much David Lee Roth lately. I'm Chris Powell. Thanks very much for listening to us on the Bellingham Podcast.
Oh, now all the lawnmowers turn off? Are you for real?
Well, our recording has ended.